mobility room here at CoreFit, and we're talking about ways to mobilize downstream of the lower back. So if you've had lower back issues, you're trying to prevent those, this is part 2 of our series, ongoing series of ways that the multifunctional ways. You can't just do one thing and fix a problem for your lower back. It's so complicated. Your body's this web of muscles, tendons, and ligaments and bones that are all connected. So if we move something down here, something up here is adjusting to compensate. So this is a way, again, of mobilizing downstream, tight hips. We all sit in chairs all day. We drive in cars. We sit at our table and we eat our food. So we're spending a lot of time in a seated position, which is causing those hip flexors and other parts of your legs to become unusually shortened, what they would be or would have experienced prior to the invention of the office and our office chairs, where our bodies would have been on our feet more or sitting in different positions on the ground, as you may see here, or possibly in a full squat position with our butt to our heels sitting comfortably. Not many of us in the West can do that very well. So what we're talking about is restoring those positions. So one, taking away some of that pull on your pelvis that gets that back into extension or flexion. As we're having our legs straight, we're just going to work on opening up those hamstrings. So a couple ways to attack this stretch. We're going to keep our back straight and then come forward. And you're going to come forward till you feel that pull build up in that hamstring. And while you're working through all of these stretches, we'll talk about our breathing. As you breathe in, you're going to create a little tension. And as you exhale, we're going to bring ourselves forward just that much more as we can, and we can relax into our stretch. At other times, you'll attack this stretch and let your back round and reach out for your stretch and get into that position. But again, working into breathing, inhale and exhale long and slow. Okay, so after that, we'll go right into, I'll show you this side. We'll go right into a cross-legged just hug here. We're going to help stretch out, again, part of our hips and our glute medius. And on this one, we're going to put our shoulder or hand behind our hips. And we're going to work on keeping our spine straight when we breathe in. And as we exhale, we're getting more twist. Inhale, you're getting straighter and taller with your spine. Exhale, just a little bit more twist. And you're going to continue to do that pattern until you've got to your furthest point and you want to stay there for a couple breaths. Just keep breathing and exhaling and enjoying that relaxing breathing and that stretch you're going to get and that good feeling you're going to get when you're done with these stretches. So there's 2 there for you. We'll take that right into another form of that twist where we'll bring that leg across our body and we're going to open up our hand so we have our shoulder open and we're going to look towards our hand. And then again, a good stretch through your lats, your thoracic spine, your lower back. You're getting a lot of things on this stretch. A good dynamic stretch all the way through your body. Similar to our last stretch there you saw. So another one we'll go right into here, the pigeon. We're going to square our hips up with the floor. Get that leg right underneath your body. And again, another good outside of that hip, your glute medius. We're going to drop down on the floor, and then you may need to stay a little bit higher here. If you can, as you breathe into it, you're relaxing and getting comfortable and keeping those hips as flush with the ground as possible. Notice when you're going through any of these stretches, if you find your body shifting in a weird, interesting way, especially when you get into those hamstring stretches, we see a lot of people let that leg turn out because this is a lot easier than here. You're avoiding those tight muscles that we want to be targeting to begin with. So be aware of your body being square. Another stretch you'll use in your chair. So here's something you can do in your office while you're sitting there. Bring that leg up. We'll start off keeping our back straight. And again, we'll bring ourselves forward as far as possible while maintaining that straight back position. So get into here, again, working on that long, slow breathing, which helps calm your body and bring it into a relaxed state, activating your parasympathetic nervous system. And then we'll pull this knee up to the chest as we keep that same position, that same angle in the hip that we got to as we were leaning forward, and we'll feel that stretch getting more into, again, the outside of our hips, which pulling on the outside, that QL, the back of your hips, where a lot of people experience their pain. And then another variation is we will let ourselves come forward and round that spine and get into that stretch and breathe through that, okay? So both sides obviously on everything that we're doing here. One other stretch I want you guys, let's open up those hips as we're coming out of our chairs, right? We've closed off those hip flexors, they're short, and then all of a sudden, bam, they have to open up when we stand up, and that usually doesn't happen. Usually we remain here and we don't even realize it because this feels normal to us, and we have that constant flexion in our hips, and then our back could be extending or even flexing to compensate depending on your other techniques. So we'll get into the couch stretch. It's going to help us open up that hip. Right before we get to this position, I like to start out getting into the adductors, and we'll drop down. So you're going to get that hip into extension and then start to come forward. This knee, let me show you a little better angle here. We're going to keep this foot flat on the ground right now. Cover your foot with your hand, and then you're going to drop down on the ground and get yourself as low as possible. Getting into, and you can work on getting this elbow down onto the floor while you're here. And again, in this bottom position, our focus is getting into our groin or inside of our leg there. Spend about a minute in that position breathing. And then finally, you'll come back up right into the next stretch. And we're going to work on bringing this hip out past the knee. And we're going to get nice and tall. We want to make sure our spine is straight here. We're maintaining that good core integrity. We're not letting ourselves go into extension, because really what that's doing is, again, you bypassing stretching out that hip flexor. So think about pulling up the front of your hips, engaging your glute on that side. It's going to help you keep those hips neutral and do so. And then as you can, this knee is going to move out past, or sorry, this hip is going to move out past, further past your knee. Okay. Also in this setup, you want to make sure this foot is in line with your body or just barely to the outside shadow of your hip as you're stretching here. Another way to get higher into that psoas insertion, which is up here in the bottom of the rib cage, bring up that arm, and you're going to feel that pull start to happen up here, and you'll know what I'm talking about, where that psoas, your hip flexor, is running from the front of your hips through your pelvis, and then it inserts up the bottom lumbar. So it's connecting across that lumbar. If it's short and it's tight, as we mentioned, as you're coming out of your chair, pulling those lumbar forward to compensate as we stand up and keeping you in a very ugly position where your abs cannot do their job and protect your spine. So that's talking about stretching downstream. We have more videos talking about strengthening the core, as well as what we need to do upstream to make sure our back is not becoming hypermobile, our lower back hypermobile, compensating for our tight shoulders and thoracic spine. We'll show you those videos on our YouTube page. Thanks, guys.